For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have 30 minutes of fun for you. Now, this is actually kind of a part two, a continuation of the show from last week. Now, I was going on about how I was giving my thoughts about what it's like to be a good business person, and then I was also talking about what makes me a good business person, and it wasn't done in a bragging way. I'm not like that. I jokingly brag about things, but truly I'm very humble about everything that I've accomplished, and I certainly don't rub it in people's faces. I'm not the type of person, and you can check my social media to verify this, but I'm not the type of person who is bragging about everything and I retired at 39 and I own 2 houses, they both have pools. I've never done anything like that. You can search me out and see that's the absolute truth. And then you have other business people who are flashing their wealth and their success and reminding you how great they are and, why they're the best. And that's not something that I do. So I was telling you how we've had our same group here for 20 years at the publishing and broadcast company, the media company. And then we've spun that into a swimwear and underwear, a men's swimwear company, and then a coffee company here in West Hollywood. So we've got our 2 teams. We've got our group in Canada that handles the publishing and broadcasting, and then a different team doing the swimwear. And then in California here, we have the coffee team. And we go back and forth. Our broadcast team used to be in West Hollywood, and then we've kind of gone back and forth. So we were running late on the last show, and that's why I said I didn't get around to talking about the whole quote-unquote influencer lifestyle, because that basically is a business, right? I mean, maybe you're becoming an influencer for the free shit, right? You're wanting the the free food, the free products, the free trip somewhere, and that's all fine and dandy. But if that's not paying the bills, it really doesn't, mean anything. And I think that right now, in today's world, the attitude, the ego of a quote-unquote influencer is that you don't have another job when you're an influencer, because that's going to be your bread and butter, right? You don't want to be like, oh, I work in an office, but I'm an influencer on the weekends. That's so uncool. Like, that's not a successful, And so coming up in the next segment, I didn't even know what an influencer was, probably about 10 years ago. Maybe it was about 10 years ago. And I'm going to tell you my first encounter with quote-unquote influencers and how it was. I'm not easily offended, but I'm going to use the word offensive because of the way they looked at me, somebody who is a best-selling author and had a syndicated radio show for 15 years and a syndicated newspaper column for 20 years. So when I use the word offensive, I wasn't personally bothered because I still felt that I was better than them. But you'll understand why when I tell the story. So that is coming up on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. SpeakFreeWithJB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on the Scribble. You know, it's shocking to hear that people, young people even, the aspiring profession for a lot of these youngsters is to be a YouTuber, is to be an influencer. And I always say it that way because I just think it's a crock of shit. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. The way that the new generation has, podcaster. Well, it's basically you're a radio broadcaster. Before we got into these whole video podcast things, it was basically like it's called talk radio. And then, with blogging, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm a blogger. It's like, well, it's really just bad journalism. It's not even journalism. It's just, it's creative writing, really. So these crafts that used to be artful are now kind of, bastardized and, dumbed down almost, in a sense, to conform to that, right? Because now everybody's a podcaster. Everybody has a YouTube channel. Everybody has a blog. Everybody is a content creator. And so it's not really meant to be for everybody, because if you can't make a business out of it, then really. So I was doing a travel program with our syndicated radio shows. Why was I the only one on that trip? I'm trying to think now. Why did they throw me to the wolves on that? Normally we would have... Bonnie's not sitting there. We just taped the other show a few minutes ago, and now I guess they're getting coffee or something. When we would do our travel tourism programming on the syndicated radio show, we would have at least one producer come with me, but sometimes... Why did I go by myself? I can't remember. But we did a bunch of shows in Yukon, and then one time we had... I'm not even going to get in on it. We had somebody that just didn't... We hired a freelancer, and it was just a horrible experience. Not getting into that. Use your core people. That's going back to that show that we did last week about the good business owner tips. Use your people, trust your people, and if you're going to hire somebody and outsource, make sure they know exactly what the expectations are. So I was going to Yukon by myself. Now, we had a great relationship with the tourism board there, and they flew me first class when I would go. So I'm on the plane. I had to go from Winnipeg to Vancouver and then from Vancouver up. So, by the way, Yukon is like right by Alaska for anybody who doesn't know Northern Canada. So I get there, and I was told that there were going to be two, here's my sigh, okay? Bloggers. And I thought, well, this is weird, because normally when we do these trips, it's just us. It's an individual press trip, which means it's one-on-one. It's us with the tourism board. That person is taking us around, driving us around. They're chauffeuring, they're chaperoning, they're doing everything. They're producing the content. So I had never done what was called a group press trip. That's why I guess I was by myself, because it was going to be with other people. And I don't know why we agreed to that. Let me give Bonnie shit when she's back in her chair. So... I knew that I was meeting two other people. I didn't know really anything about them. And when I got to the hotel, I stayed in the same hotel every time that I was there. So I get off the shuttle bus or whatever it was that they had pick me up at the airport. And, I walk through, I check in at the lobby, and then I walk through, and there were these two young women who were sitting, in these chairs there. And I walked by, and then I was kind of like, I kind of get a vibe that those are the bloggers, but I didn't say anything, whatever. So they were already in the lobby waiting because they had got there the day before I did, and they were with the tourism guy, who I loved working with. His name is Jim. And so they, I guess, had just had like a break where, okay, drop you off at the hotel for a couple hours, whatever, do your thing, unwind, have a nap, whatever you want to do. And then we'll all go for dinner because Jeremy will be here in the evening, and, and then we'll all meet up. So I go, after I check in, I go up to my room. I just kind of, dump my stuff or whatever, and I don't know if I changed my clothes or, whatever I did, freshened up, and then I came downstairs. So here I come, and these two young women are still in the lobby, and I was kind of just like hanging out. I didn't say anything, whatever. And so one of them approached me and said, "Oh, are you Jeremy?" And I said, "Yes." "Hi, I'm so-and-so," and then "Hi, I'm so-and-so." I was like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." And they were both from Toronto. And so right away, as a Canadian, I was kind of like, "Oh, you're going to have the Toronto ego. Oh, God, here we go." Because, Toronto is just like the center of the world, right? It's just, you're a media personality from Winnipeg. Oh. So it was all, fine and dandy. It was pleasant. So this was the first time that I had heard of the term influencer. I'm a food blogger, and then the other one was such and such influencer. And I mean, by definition, I know what the word influencer means, right? Somebody who influences, somebody who has, but I didn't know it in the sense of what it means for social media world. So I was kind of like, "Oh, cool. Okay. Nice to meet you." So we have this few minutes of chit chat, and then Jim, the tourism guy, ends up coming and picks us up, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and so he's like, "All right, we'll go for dinner." So we go for dinner, and I'm catching up with Jim, who I hadn't seen in a while, and then these women were basically talking, and I said we had just taped Christmas shows, because I think it was like January, February. I was there for a winter festival, and so we had just taped our Christmas shows in December. That year we had taped in Houston and Montreal. We actually did 2 destinations, and we had an entire month of travel programming. So these 2 influencers are basically kind of comparing notes, and they're trying to like one up each other, where it's kind of like, "Oh, I just did Montreal too," and blah, blah. And so then they ask me, right? "Oh, where did you go?" "Well, I was just in Houston." "Oh, I was in Dallas." "Oh, I did a trip." And so they're kind of complaining about the trips they've gone on. And I thought, that's really ballsy, because you're actually sitting next to the guy who arranged for you to come here. So if you're going to go and talk about other destinations like this right in front of him, maybe a stupid move, chickie. Like you kind of have to kind of think about how you're saying it. But that was their way of trying to make it seem like, "Oh, I go on all these trips, and oh, I go and do this, and I do that and do that." And it wasn't a competition for me. I just kind of thought, I'm a best-selling author. I've been on the radio. I do red carpets. I do Hollywood stuff. You're a blogger in your parents' basement. Legitimately, she lived in her parents' basement still. I'm not making fun. She did. And so I didn't know that at the time. So anyway, they're trying to size me up. They're, kind of trying to make me feel bad about what I've accomplished, or that, it's just this one-upmanship of a story that you tell, right? "Oh, I was just in Montreal. Oh, I did this, and oh, I did that. Did you do this? I did that there." And I'm like, I don't fucking play that game. Like, I don't care. So we go and do an activity that evening. I don't remember. We went to see some kind of a show. And then we did our other activities that were on the schedule. And so Jim, the tourism guide, this was like a day or two later, he had gone somewhere, and he just said, "Well, you three, we were staying at this resort. We ended up going out of town, and we were in this rural area, kind of like a resort, where we each had our own individual cottage, which was actually pretty fucking cool." So the 2 of them have their own cottage, I have mine, and then we agreed, like, "Oh, okay, well, let's just go meet up in the lodge, and we'll have dinner together," which is, it's all part of our arrangement. So they were already there before me. I come in, I sit, and that's when they just kind of started to grill me, as in wanting to know, like, what I did, how long I've been doing it, and so when I said, "Well, I'm a syndicated radio host," and I said, "I'm a newspaper columnist." And at that time, I guess I'd been in the newspaper for, let's say, 10 years. It was 20 years in total once. The newspaper actually shut down. That's why I stopped doing it. But yeah, it was literally 20 years that I was writing for them. And so, they kind of poo-poo the idea of newspapers, really newspapers. I said, well, they publish online too, so it's not like it's just a frickin' paper, right? It's you use the term newspaper, but it was a news outlet. And then they were asking me about the radio thing. And just the tone of questioning, just the way that they were kind of asking me things, I just kind of thought, like, you're trying to make, like, you're better than I am. And I said, like, I'm not sitting here judging you and asking questions. And it was just the tone of it. It was the delivery. And so they asked me then about how many Instagram followers I had. And I said, I'm not on Instagram. You're on the radio and whatever, and you're not on Instagram? You're doing red carpets and not on Instagram? I said, no, I'm not. Twitter? And I said, yeah, I'm on Twitter. Oh. So then they asked me, what's your Twitter? And I said, well, it's Jeremy D. Bradley, I think it was at the time. And so as we're sitting at the table, we either just ordered or we're waiting to order or whatever, they are pulling up my Twitter account on their phones. And so they started to scroll, and one of them said, however many followers it was, 10,000 or so, I can't remember. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. And then they start reading out the tweets, because my account had tweeted out our entertainment headlines that were taped, whatever, either the day before or whatever, whenever I did them. And so I have a team, right? So they had scheduled or posted the tweets about our entertainment show that morning. And so they seemed confused because they're like, you don't know what you tweeted? I said, well, I haven't tweeted since I've been here because I've been doing this kind of thing. Well, you tweeted this at, 6 hours ago and this. And I said, well, I've got a team. Like, it's a business. We have people that do that kind of stuff. I said, I don't do my tweets. The odd time I'll jump on if I'm, live tweeting Bachelor or Survivor or something. But otherwise, I said, no, it's not me doing it. So they're poo-pooing. They're going to say, oh, I'm old school media, which is basically kind of their way of saying, like, I'm not part of the new generation. And I'm sitting there going, but again, you still live with your parents in the basement, and I, make a shit ton of money in syndication, and, how can you just kind of discredit what I do? And but I didn't engage. I'm kind of like, whatever. I know that I have a great successful business and I make a lot of money. So through the course of conversation, it basically then kind of turned into, again, the one-upsmanship, because I said, well, I've got a best-selling book. They're like, what's the name of the book? So I said, oh, yeah, I'm in the newspaper in Winnipeg. I've got a weekly column for that too. So I was in, two newspapers at the same time in Manitoba. And I said, well, I have my weekly opinion column in the one paper, and then I'm in the business section, and we do something around my book. And so then they look that up too. And so that's where I said, I do the media rounds. I'm the expert of, the subject. And so then one of them said, well, I do CTV Morning Live, which is like one of the morning shows in town. And I said, oh, okay, cool. So now I figure, what, let's talk business here, ladies. Let's, I want to know how successful and how business-minded you are. Because like I said, that whole influencer thing, it's either that you just want the free trips, or you want the free food, or you want the free swag. That's what you're doing. So I said, okay, so you were kind of like a food expert or whatever on the show. So if you don't mind me asking, like, what did they pay you for that then? Like, what was your... Oh, I'm not paid. I was just, I was promoting my blog, and I said, I was confused. I acted confused. Meanwhile, I was kind of like, I'm going in for the kill on this. So I was like, oh, so they don't pay you to do it. You just kind of go on. And so, like, how much, does your blog make? Like, how much are you paid? Was it through ads? Do you, sell content? Why are you here in Yukon? Like, what are you on assignment for somebody? Are you writing for a magazine? Well, I'm sourcing, I'm scouting, I'm going to get some ideas, and then I'll shop it around. And I said, oh, so you don't even have an assignment. So you're just kind of prospecting. You're kind of just, feeling it out. Yeah. And I said, oh, okay. So you got kind of like no money coming in from this trip. And she said, no, not at the moment. And I said, okay. I said, did you negotiate? Like, how much is the tourism board paying you to be here? And they kind of were like, what do you mean? Well, they're paying for the trip. I said, right, but they're paying for your time to be here, right? Like, they're not paying you as well? You're not getting a check from them? This isn't it's called pay to play or pay and play in the broadcast or media business, where basically it's kind of like, you cut me a check and I'll come and play at your resort and I'll talk about how wonderful it is, or I'll play at your adventure water park or something like that. That's what it is. It's not just a matter of promotional considerations provided by, oh, and I got free tickets to Disney. No. Disney is paying you and paying for the opportunity for you to go there for free. That's how it works, ladies. So I think that was kind of when the tide started to turn, and they were like, oh, and maybe I made them feel like they weren't really good business people after all. So this whole influencer thing, if you're not looking at it as a business and you're not kind of seeing the money, one of them also went, oh, and I said too, like with my book and my businesses, I said, well, I also do the speaking circuit. So I go to junior highs and high schools around Winnipeg, and I speak to the students. So I've got this kind of, presentation that I go and I talk about what I had done and what I've accomplished and how I did it. Kind of like what I was talking about on the show last week, and even this content today. And I said, and I talk about entrepreneurialism and having a mindset like that. And so one of them said, well, I went and, I spoke at my college that I went to. They asked me, and I said, oh, right. So what did you charge them? Well, that's my college. I didn't charge them anything. And I said, oh, so you just volunteer your time for all these places. Like, you don't even have a business strategy where you're paid. She's like, well, I'm not going to charge them. I said, it's a college. They've got money. Do you know how much tuition is? A college has money, chickie poo. Seriously. So I said, yeah, the high schools pay me. Like, we're in Canada. The public schools have money. This is not, it's not like you see in American cities where it's like, oh, well, there's no money at the schools, whatever. Oh, no, the schools have money in Canada, rest assured. And by the way, my mom was a teacher for 30 years. She told me, we pay so many people to come and perform at the school or, whatever. And she was at an elementary school. So I knew that the money, is there to pay people and bring them in. And so I said, well, I kind of lowball. I said I charge them, about $100 for an hour. That's what I was charging. So I can do 2 or 3 of these in a day, and basically I just talk the same thing at each of the schools, and it's a $300 day for me. And I just go over and when you do it long enough, you do the same stories over and over again, you kind of get this routine, and you can just do it. You don't even, it's autopilot almost. It's a performance, right? And so, again, they're not being paid for their appearances on the morning shows. They're not being paid for their speaking or telling their life story and, mentoring or motivating these kids and inspiring them. So I was like, all right, there you go. And, this content that you're coming up with, they're not even paying you to be here. So you're just kind of here for the free crap. And then they started to complain about, oh, another backpack, oh, another hat. So, like, the free stuff that the tourism board gives you, I don't need it half the time, but I'm not ungrateful. We had done 4 or 5 different trips to Yukon. I probably had just as many hats and backpacks because it's just kind of their typical gift bag or whatever when you get there. I didn't need another one, but you know what? I take it. I'm not going to refuse it and go, oh no, I've already got one. Whatever. And then I can give it to my nephew, or I can give the bag to whoever. Throw it in a closet and I'll use it as a gift for somebody, or, as a prize or something for something. So, But that's the way they were communicating, is that they were just complaining, oh, another hat. Is it really that much of an inconvenience, right? Like, you're trying to sound cool, like it's just like, oh, just more swag for my place. Oh, just, ugh. It was so pretentious. It was so hoity-toity. It was just so, it's like, but you live in your fucking parents' basement. I can't get past this. You're shitting on me as a Winnipeg. Radio, that's old school. And I'm like, but who's the one who's getting paid to be here, So, and it never became combative. Like, I never I played innocent with this, like that. Oh, okay. No, I've never heard of people doing it free. Okay. No, I didn't realize that, oh, okay. So that's good enough for you. I didn't. Okay, cool. Maybe they were getting the hint, right? So remember, I'm going through this for like 2 or 3 days, and I'm by myself. I don't even have my team that I can just kind of go and say, like, get these people away from me, or can I get away from them? So it kind of comes full circle where I get the last laugh. This is always what I love. Like, I'll have situations in my life or shit that goes down where I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But somehow I always get the last laugh. Somehow there's just a bit of sweetness for JB at the end. So I'm going through these like 2 or 3 days, however long we were together. I don't know, maybe it was 4 days, and just feeling totally judged. And I was not misguided on that. I was absolutely being judged because, again, like I said, if you hear it in their tone and just like, who fucking pulls out their phone and starts scrolling because they want to see how many followers you have right at the fucking dinner table? Seriously, like, look me up after. Why are you doing it right then and there? So it's the last day. Now I had a super early flight. Again, it's the Yukon airport, so there's not very much in Whitehorse. There's not, it's not a big airport. There's not many planes going out. There's maybe like 2 to Vancouver. And so they were not on the same plane going home. But for some reason, one of the women was on the plane with me. We were going down Vancouver and then across the country. She was going to Toronto. I was stopping in Winnipeg. So I went to the airport with her in the morning. We get into the shuttle bus or whatever it was, van or whatever, and we go to the airport. And it's not a very big terminal, so it was kind of just like, oh my God, it was packed because there's these 2 flights that go out right now, one to Vancouver and one somewhere else. I don't remember. And I said to her, all right, let's just do the priority check. And she said, well, how do I do that? And I said, well, are you in J class? Which J class is business class for Air Canada when we were flying. At the time, I don't know what it is now. Maybe it's the same. And so she's looking at her ticket and she's like, well, what is it? Does it say on the ticket or what? I said, well, it should say under like class or boarding or whatever. It should have the letter J. Yours doesn't have J. And so she's looking and she shows me and she didn't. And so I was kind of like, this is delicious. This is good. This is delicious for a food blogger. So I said to her, well, did you fly first class here? Well, she said, no, I was basically like the second last row on the plane. And I said, oh. Like I said to you listeners earlier, JB was flown first class and was flown first class every time going to Yukon. So I kind of thought, this is my last, few moments with her. And I said, well, then I'll go and check in. I'm not, it's too many people and whatever. I just don't feel like standing in line. So I'll just see you on the other side, in the boarding area. And so I went and I checked in. And this, again, was the best part because I'm kind of like, I checked in and then I was sort of like lingering and waiting. And I went through security. And again, not a very big place. So it's not, it would be very difficult to lose somebody in there because there's not many places you can go. So I go through security and I'm sitting in the boarding area, the lounge or whatever you call it. And I'm waiting. I was like, I don't even see her. Did she like leave? Did she go somewhere? Did she, I don't know, go back to the hotel because she forgot something? Like, where the fuck is this chick? Where did she go? And eventually I see her just kind of on her own, sort of in the corner. And I thought, she's not even coming over to talk to me. So either she's embarrassed, she's pissed off, she's, because I would sit there and go, wow, for 3 days I've been riding this guy's ass. Like, he's a nobody and he's from Winnipeg. Oh, and you do radio? That's so old. And newspapers? Who reads newspapers anymore? And it's like, you know what though? I was flown first class. I was paid to be there. And you were, that goes to show how this tourism board feels about a food blogger who's not even on assignment, who's just, prospecting. She's not even, there we go. So you can shit on me all you want. You were not flown first class. That's the mic drop right there, right? Like, do you know what I'm saying? So now, of course, because I'm business class, I have priority boarding, right? I get on the plane before she does. And so there I am in, row, 2 or 3, whatever it was. I'm up at the front of the plane. And I've got my little champagne flute or whatever, it's not a wine glass, but, it's a stem, like a small little champagne glass. And, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for her to come on. Because you know where I'm going with this, folks. You know where I'm going with this. I'm going to have my little pinky up. And I'm going to be looking. I'm going to see her out of the corner of my eye and I'll look away, right? And then as she's coming towards, that's when I'll make the eye contact. And I'll do kind of like the nod, right? I'm going to do the nod. And I'll have the pinky and I'll just do a sip. And I'll kind of, cheers to her as she goes by. And she's going to have to walk all the way to the back of the plane. And that's where I went and thought, this is that sweet revenge. Karma, I don't know if that's the karma. I don't know, is karma the right word, right? But it's just that revenge of going, you tried to make me feel like I, didn't accomplish anything and whatever. And here we are, it comes full circle where you're not some big shot blogger because you did not get first class either direction, and you weren't paid for this trip. It was kind of like, well, whatever. We got to bring somebody. We got the budget, so there we go. That was the full circle moment for me, and so that's where I just kind of thought, here we are. So, as for that whole influencer thing, here's the deal. Look at it as a business. The free shit, great. You know what? When I started to do my radio shows, I told this on the show last week. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back. But I said, always look at it as a business. Sure, I can reach out to whatever, Samsung or whoever it is, or, and get a free phone or get a free tablet or get a free, whatever. But at the end of the day, what good is that? That's not paying my bills. That's not feeding me. That's not, keeping the roof over my head. That's not doing anything. Just sweet fuck all. So I'm advertising Samsung on my radio show to 300,000 people, and they just gave me a $700 tablet? That's the wrong side of the deal, folks. Wrong side of the deal. Yeah, I got a tablet that I don't even use, that I don't even need, and I'm advertising them 300,000 people, and all it costs them, that tablet doesn't cost them $700. It costs them maybe $100. And they're getting all that free advertising just because they shot me a tablet. No way, Jose. That's where I was kind of like, wait a second. No. they're going to give a tablet and they're going to pay for the advertising. They're going to pay for that product placement. So influencers, it's not just a matter of putting a shop now link on your blog and go, oh, well, I get a commission for every product sell. No, you sell the fucking ad space on your blog. You know, you build up your audience and you do shit like that. And so, you know, when you look at content creators, look at that as, think of a TV show. So even a show like Friends, you know, Big Bang Theory, whatever, you know, any of those shows that were on for a really long time, eventually they run their course. It's not that Friends started to get bad. It's not that Friends was all of a sudden going downhill. And, you know, they did however many years they did, and that was good. Same thing, you know, with Seinfeld or any of those shows. Eventually you run out of storylines, you run out of, you know, you're duplicating content, you're kind of, you know, and then it's time to pull the plug and go, okay, it was a good run. Think about that as the quote-unquote influencer lifestyle. So if you're a blogger or you're a YouTuber, whatever it is, you have to sustain that. Think about how much competition there is out there, right? This is also why I don't want to host the radio or do a video podcast, because everybody does it. And I'm not going to do the stupid things that people are interested in to get noticed and to have a viral moment. I have a core group of listeners that have been with me since I was on the radio. They enjoy this podcast, and that's why I do this. So if you're not, you know, if you don't have a strategy and you're not making a business out of it, and you're just, you know, oh, I'm a podcaster. Well, or is this a hobby, or are you making money from it? Like, what's the point of it? And, you know, eventually, this is not a lifelong thing. This is basically like a job, so that if you think about how many years people stay at a job now, maybe a couple years, if that, they go from job to job. They might be doing the same thing, but it's not necessarily the same company or, you know, same employer. But as the content creator, you're doing the exact same thing all the time. And somebody had asked me, they were going to start an OnlyFans page, and so I said, okay, well, what do you envision yourself doing? Like, what is it just going to be? You getting naked? Like, you know, what's going to be the content? Well, yeah, I figure, you know, I'll do kind of stuff like that. I'll tease, and then I'll do, you know, some solo stuff. And I said, okay. And I said, but you have to realize, and it's weird to have a conversation about that with somebody, right? But we're technically talking business. And so I said, you know, the audience though is going to eventually get sick of that, right? Because now they've seen the goods. So now what, right? They're going to want something more next. You're going to have to take it to the next level. You always kind of have to keep doing that. Because it's like, well, I've already seen them naked, so why do I need to stick around? So you're going to have to incorporate other things, whether that's toys or another person, or, you know, you've got to up your game. You've got to keep them coming. Yeah, you know, but right, and that's where you're going to see you might get really popular at the very beginning because you're hot and people have wanted to see you naked for a while, but now they have, great, and now what? So this anticipation for them to see you, they've paid what, maybe $10 for a month or a week or however you charge your subscription? $6, $5 even? Okay, great. So if they're not coming back, you basically, you know, they've got everything they needed for $5. And if they don't renew their subscription, well, there you go. That's sending a message, right? And if you don't look at it that way, if you just go, well, other people will subscribe and that's fine. Okay. But, you know, you kind of want that recurring subscription of somebody who enjoys it and is going to support you for the long term, right? If it's a one-off, 1 month or 1 week or however long your subscription is, then they weren't interested. You didn't keep them, you know, you didn't produce enough stuff that kept them coming back for more. They were like, overrated, or, you know, not what I thought, or, oh, boring. And then they go. Because there's another creator, there's another OnlyFans person, there's another person who's hotter, who's got bigger tits, a bigger dick, a bigger, you know, whatever, better body, better face, better whatever. And so that's the thing with influencers, is that, you know, you have to kind of go, what is the long-term game here? Not everybody's going to be a Kardashian. Not everybody's going to be a Hilton. Not everybody's going to be a whoever. When I see stories on TMZ or whatever about, you know, an influencer, you know, died of cancer, or this YouTuber died, or this TikToker, I don't know any of them. Maybe they're household names for some people, but I could not name one YouTuber. I guess, like, you know, Joe Rogan or something, but he's not really a YouTuber, right? He's, you know, like, aside from, or let's say a podcaster who's not a celebrity, just one of these people who, you know, I don't know. And I think we've also changed what the definition of celebrity is, right? Back, like, if you said Meryl Streep, most people know that that's the household name. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston, Cher, Britney Spears. Justin Bieber. That's a celebrity because 95% of people in your city know that name, right? Now, though, when I see, TikTok star, YouTube star, I think that's being a little generous. It had to be tens of millions of people knowing you to have that classification as a star, as a celebrity. And now, I can go and ask 10 people, hey, have you heard of Joe Smith? Apparently he was a TikToker. I'm like, oh, I don't know who that is. I'm not on TikTok. Because you're a dime a dozen. You're a dime a dozen. And I say that even doing this podcast. Do we have the most listeners? No. But at the same time, it's a way for me to kind of keep talking about the things that I would talk on the radio show, and even though we don't do the show anymore. So, it's just kind of something fun to kind of just do. So, if you're looking at doing the influencer life as a business, then you need to kind of figure out what's the long-term plan here. Maybe you can run 3-4 years, but eventually at some point you're going to, and this is where, by the way, you get an ego. You get an ego really fast. If all of a sudden you become popular and you've got 20,000, 30,000, 40, 100,000 followers, just wait though, because if you don't monetize this, and you rely on something like TikTok, and all of a sudden TikTok gets shut down and you can't have your income anymore, guess what happens? You have to stubbornly now go and take a job and work for somebody else. And once you've had that taste of quote-unquote fame, you feel that that kind of a job is beneath you. I'm telling you right now, that is how you feel. Because as an entrepreneur, as somebody who was on the radio, best-selling author, whatever, I absolutely felt that way. People know me. They know me from the newspaper. I am not going to go and do a customer service job now somewhere, and they'll be like, wait a second, is that the guy from the newspaper? Wow. The ego gets in the way. Now, and at the very beginning, before I started the company, I absolutely had to take another job. Even though I was having radio opportunities and going and doing things, it was not beneath me. Was it embarrassing as hell? Sure was. But I had to make ends meet. I had a house to pay for, or I had, whatever, expenses, and I had to be an adult. So I grit my teeth and I applied for jobs. Sure did. And then when you start talking to people and I'm like, well, I'm going to Hollywood next weekend for a red carpet. And they're like, and you're working here? Really? And so I made up a story. I lied and I said, well, you know what? It's boring working from home all day. Seriously. Remember, this is long before the pandemic and everybody working from home. And I said, yeah, so this is me, having interactions with people. It's boring as all hell. And that was my cover story. Yeah, it really was, because I was embarrassed. And so, what's the long term? So I see these people on Instagram that have, 200,000 followers or whatever, and it's like, great, but your popularity at some point is going to dwindle. It really is. People are eventually going to forget about you. They're going to be like, it's just the same old thing every time. Like, what are you known for? Those get ready with me videos where you just, you drop the pair of shoes and suddenly you're wearing them, or you do a jump and suddenly your outfit changes. How many times can you see somebody do that? It's... If that's your claim to fame, think about it. So if you do have that aspiration to be an influencer, think about all these things that I've just said. Think about it. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying have a backup plan. Don't get ahead of yourself, and don't be, once it's all over and be like, oh, I'm just too good. Because you hear these people, going back to OnlyFans for a second, you hear these people about, oh, they make, 6 figures a month and whatever. Okay. Are they saving that? Are they saving the money? Or are they going and buying 3 sports cars and showing them off? Because they're going to blow through that money real quick. Let me tell you, that money goes fast. And then what happens, right? So you have your maybe year-long, 2-year-long, fame on OnlyFans. You didn't up your game. You didn't go more hardcore content. You didn't, take it to the next level. You didn't bring in group stuff. You didn't do whatever. And they go. New people will discover you, yes. But at some point, people are like, I've seen it before. I've seen him do that. All right. Yeah, it was okay the first time. It's getting old now. And so that money dries up and it's kind of like, oh, now I need to figure this out. Now I've got to pivot would be the word, I guess. And that pivot is going to be getting a job and working for somebody. I'm waiting, right? We're still kind of in this first generation kind of influencer, but I've seen it. I've gone on to YouTube, right? Because it gives you the suggestions after you watch a video and there's related videos or whatever it is. I will purposely now go and look, and I'll watch, somebody might post a review video of, like a product review kind of a thing. So I'll go and I'll look. I'm like, wow, he's got 900,000 followers. So I'll go and I'll click and see, he had all these videos, millions of views, and not a new video in the last 3 years. He just dropped off the face of the earth. Where did he go? You've got that many followers, that many views, potentially great monetization and ways to get paid from YouTube. Where did he go? He's just gone. He's gone. Did you get a job somewhere? What happened? Like, there's not even a goodbye. It's like, this is your audience. This is the people, that you've been entertaining, that you have, I thought, had a connection with. And he's just gone. So that also, to me, is very kind of weird because, yeah, you can have huge audience and then just, that's it. It's not working out. I'm just stopping doing it. Did he fall out of love with it? Did he run out of ideas? Did he just, throw in the towel and be like, it's too much work, doesn't pay, I'm going to go get a job? I kind of am like, that's what's fascinating about it. Different for me doing the radio thing where it's 15 years, I'm going and saying, all right, you know what, I'm still on a bunch of stations, but it's time. Just like the TV shows, Friends or whoever, it's like, you know what, you go and say, I had enough, I've done it all, I'm good, I entertained people, it was fun while it lasted, it's over, and we move on. Now, I had owned other businesses at the time. I had our e-commerce stores, we still do publishing and broadcasting for other organizations, so I had something to fall back on because I'd turned it into a business. Right? So as an influencer, what's your business plan? So when I'm done with my content, when I'm done with my OnlyFans content, what am I doing then? Am I going to mentor other people? Maybe I can do workshops and tell people, hey, this is how I did it. And now I can sell subscriptions to how you can learn how to do it because I did it. Right? You got to spin it into something at that point. Otherwise, okay, so it's 3 years of your life essentially kind of wasted in a sense. Yes, you had life experiences, but you didn't do anything long-term with that in the business sense. If you're, unless you get a job in marketing or PR or something and you can consultant, you can be a consultant for somebody. Okay. But otherwise, so you made a shit ton of money, fucking or whatever it was that you were doing. And what happened with money? Did you save it? Are you on easy street now? Are you good? Because that's what happened with my radio show is I was making $250,000 a year at the height of our radio shows. I wasn't really spending anything because I'm not a big spender. And I was able to then go and say, all right, well, after 15 years, if I don't ever want to work again, if I don't ever want to work another 5 minutes in my life, I don't have to. I'm good. And that was the sweetness of it. I was able to retire at 39. Do I do shit like this still? Yes, because again, it's just fun. It's an outlet. Do we make a shit ton of money on this podcast? No, actually probably almost, next to nothing. But it's still just, another channel of, content that we produce. So there you go. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you are a quote unquote influencer, tell me what you experienced. Have you had success? What were the learning curves, the highs, the lows, the obstacles? What did you not expect? What did you encounter? What did you learn from it? How did you grow? Or if you're somebody who's totally against the influence and you laugh at these people and go, it's not, get a fucking real job, you idiot. I want to hear from you too. The email address is live, L-I-V-E, at jbonair.com. Live at jbonair.com. They are telling me wrap up because I've been talking too long. There you go, folks. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.
If you want some real